Hello, I'm Sonny Piccolo, and this is my Tech 378 book report presentation on hard drive, Bill Gates, and the making of the Microsoft empire. So to begin, Bill Gates was born October 28th, 1955, and he came from very wealthy parents that were lawyers and had great backgrounds and had very great jobs. So there was really no worries in his life when he was younger. All he had to do was just follow the steps that his parents had done, go to school, get a degree, go do what he wants. He wasn't really pressured into doing anything, but that was his background. And the story really starts when Bill is trying to win a trip to the Seattle Space Needle. And I find this important because during him wanting to win this trip, he was talking to a pastor. And at the time, Bill Gates was a very religious person when he was younger and slowly grew out of it, but he wanted to win this because he wanted to go to the space needle. He wanted to see something he'd never seen before. And this showed that he had the determination to do whatever he wanted as long as he put his mind to it. And this showed in his class grades as middle school. He was always finishing A plus on top. If he had a paper that was 2 pages, he was writing 30. He was always doing the most. And it was really cool to see that. And this slowly changed when he got out of middle school, went into high school. He went to high school at Lakeside, which is a private, very prestigious college prep school. And while he was there, he met someone that would change his life forever, who was actually 2 years older than him. This person is Paul Allen. Paul Allen and Bill Gates both co-founded Microsoft. With that, they spent a lot of time in the computer, which at the time it wasn't very sophisticated. It was a PDP-10, and they did a lot of things while they were there. They did a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Some of the bad things that they did is the PDP-10 worked on a pay-per-use schedule. So however long they used it, that's how much that computer was charged. And they had a total of $3,000, and they burnt through the $3,000 for use in the first month. And while he was doing this, he found out how to hack the PDP security system and actually change the information for how much he was using the computer so that he would get charged less, so then he would have more time on the computer. But with that, he accidentally stumbled across accounts for this company and a lot of bad things, and he ended up getting caught, got into a lot of trouble with his principal. He was told that he couldn't be on the computer for the next 6 weeks, and if he did, they'd get the police, there'd be legal issues, and that he just could not use it. And with that time, he felt bad about himself, and he was kind of down, but when he came back, he started using his hacking for good things. Not necessarily hacking, but he used the computer so much that he started writing down in a diary of problems that the PDP-10 had. And he just had a whole list of bugs and stuff, and it ended up, he reached out to the people of PDP that owned the computer, and he helped them debug their system and what was wrong. And he'd be like, oh, I asked you to fix this, but it wasn't fixed, which is crazy for someone that's in high school. That's astonishing. And he was doing this with his right-hand man, Paul Allen, from the very start, which is awesome to me. Another thing that he was doing, he was living a crazy life. He had a bunch of money, so from his parents being very wealthy, so he had a brand new Mustang in high school. He would cut class even though his parents were paying for him to go there, and he just really didn't care. He started losing interest in classes from being that A plus middle school student, and started turning into the student that really only does what they want. So when he had a math class, or if he had a computer class or whatever it may be, he was there, he was on his stuff, always getting an A. But stuff like history or philosophy or some other topics that he really wasn't interested, he started to lack in those, and he would get bad grades, but ultimately finished out on top because he ended up getting into Harvard, which was a crazy story. He roomed his very first year with roommates that would go on to work with him at Microsoft years and years down the road. But while he was there, Bill lived the life that almost all us college students lived. He was out partying, chasing girls, doing this. And to me, I would have never have thought that. When I look at Bill Gates, I see someone that's quiet, to himself, very smart, doesn't need to do all those things, but he was actually known for being a crazy gambler when he lived at Harvard. On his second year, he actually lived in a house that was known as the poker house, and they used to play high-low poker. And he started off losing all his money, never really won, and then was so determined that he became on top. He was top dog. They stopped playing because he would just keep winning. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. Another thing, while his freshman year summer was happening, him and Paul Allen actually worked at Honeywell. They wanted to be interns to get their resume up to par to all the people that work at Harvard. So then when he was done, he could go work for a great company and have a great background in Honeywell. But by the time his sophomore year came around, he decided that he wanted to drop out. This was actually very against what his father wanted from him. His father wanted him to finish school no matter what the degree was that he had to finish. And regardless of what he said, he still dropped out, which is crazy because now he's probably, in the book, it says that he's one of the richest dropouts ever, which is actually insane. Cool thing to hear. After he dropped out, he developed a software called MS Altair Basic, and this was in development with their newly made Windows company. So this company made MS Altair Basic, and before they could release, they had pre-development versions out for people to use so then they could test it, make sure it worked right. And MS Basic ended up being the biggest flop for Microsoft because these pre-releases were being flooded by all the computer hobbyists and ended up cutting like 90% of their sales. And when people would call and be like, hey, we have a problem with this, it turns out that 90% of them didn't even pay for it, and he really didn't want to help all these people. So he had a huge letter that went out to a bunch of hobbyists and a bunch of computer enthusiasts saying that, like, it's so disrespectful that you wouldn't pay me for software, and that a bootleg version, and you're trying to get help with it. And it was a crazy letter. But this misfortune that happened to him made him stronger, and he went on to land a deal with IBM that they were coming out with a personal computer that year, and that year they needed someone to make an operating system for it. So they came to Bill Gates asking him to make a software to run the computer. And he said to them that he has something ready. He needs to make a few tweaks because it's a different computer from what he's been working on, so that he's gonna make it pretty much. And turns out he had nothing made, didn't have a plan, didn't know what he was gonna do, and somehow with the deadline months out of the way, an operating system could take years to make at that time. He pulled it off, him and his Microsoft team, with days to spare, had things typed out that they were going to say during the presentation. And when he went there, they loved it so much, they signed him on that day, and he cost a one-time fee for 86 DOS, and he made $50,000. After that, with MS-DOS being so successful, he went on to make MS-DOS, a slightly different version that Microsoft made for themselves, and it ended up being one of the most successful operating systems at that time. He ended up making $200 million per year off MS-DOS and continued to make revolutionary operating systems from that day on. And this all goes to show that no matter where you come from, rich parents, not rich parents, you can have a hard life and you can be doing bad things, but if ultimately you have a plan in mind and you know where you want to go in life, that you can succeed. And reading this book really inspired me to treat myself better about how my college career is going, because sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes there's a lot on my plate and it's scary, and you get depressed and you get stressed. But even some of the most successful people in the world have been depressed, have been stressed, have had too much on their plate, have the whole world on their shoulders, but still come out on top. And I think this was a very inspirational biography that I got to read, and I'm very thankful for it. And yeah, thanks.